Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vicki Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And it's all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing, and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host. And today I have a special guest that I will introduce in just a moment. But before I do, I would like for you to do me a solid. And that means make a comment, ask a question on this episode. Oh, that would be so amazing for me and for our guest. And remember to like, subscribe, and share because I have amazing guests on this podcast and I want to help them get their message out to an even broader audience. And the only way I can do that is with your help. So remember, leave a question or a comment on this episode and remember to like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. So this lovely lady right here with me is Laura Westman. And I really don't know Laura, just a tiny, tiny bit, but we met in a group that we both belong in or belong to. We belong in there too,
Probably
as
both.
well.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is Live Your Yes Life. And I love all the messages that they have in there. And they had asked me to be part of their podcast Palooza. I think that's what they called it.
Yeah.
And yes, yes. And so I put information about my podcast, and Laura reached out to me. And so here we are. And I can tell you, she's got an amazing smile and really, really sparkly eyes. I love it. I love it. But she is a singer, an author, a podcaster, and she has a YouTube channel. And I know there's something in there because, like I said, I haven't listened to your podcast or anything yet, but it was Uncover Your Creative Magic. And that intrigued me because I have a I have a free Facebook group. It's called Make Lasting Change. And then the month of April, which we're almost at the end of April, has been our magic of month. Yes. So it's everything that I've done for this month has been all about the magic of life. And so I do daily affirmations and journal prompts. So they've all been about our magic that we create and recognize in our life. And then I do a live on Mondays where I teach a lesson and then we do the affirmation and the journal prompt. And that's been about magic as well. So it's the
Cool.
perfect ending to the month to have you here with your, what is it, Uncover Your Creative Magic. So I love it. I love
Yes.
it. I love it. I'm
How
so
magical.
excited.
Oh my
I
gosh.
know it's all divine intervention, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you don't mind, just go ahead and tell our watchers, our listeners, just a touch about you, and then we'll dive into some getting to know each other questions.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I feel like my eyes are tearing up a little bit just hearing you talk about this. Just I didn't know any of that. So this is a
Yeah.
very cool, magical kind of kismet moment, you know?
Definitely.
So I am first of all, I think you might enjoy my podcast because we talk a lot about Harry Potter, and I see that you have those books on the shelf behind you.
Yes, I
So
do.
we're very into magical media, and our podcast West of Wonderland is really this we discuss the overlap between personal development work and magical media and characters that we love and stories that resonate with us. Plus, who doesn't like more magic?
Right, right.
Frankly. So I'm sorry, you asked me to introduce myself. Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
That's part
So,
of it. That's part of it.
okay.
We're good.
Great. So, as you know, my name is Laura Westman. I'm a professional certified coach. I have been coaching since 2012 when I started my coach training at Accomplishment Coaching. And the way that I got into coaching was actually I had been really immersing myself in the world of improv comedy in
hmm
Washington, D.C. I was teaching the first couple of levels at the improv curriculum. And Vicky, I just There's something so magical about watching grown people relax and play again.
Mm-hmm.
And that I see you nodding because like
Yes.
that at the very core, that's what's so magical about improv. And I just got really interested in what's more of that change all of the time. Can that be my job? What if it was?
Yeah.
And
Oh, I love
so
this.
yeah, I'm really happy that we met. And it's funny because the reason that I was so fervently like, get me on your calendar was because even the name of your podcast really speaks to a very core tenet of how I operate. It's how I coach, but it's also, I think, increasingly over the last few years in particular, dreams, both in the sense of dreams that we have for ourselves, but also our dreaming life and our relationship between our dream life and our waking life have become a very strangely powerful way that I've made a lot of great change in my life. So I was really just interested to kind of get in the same room with you and see where we would go, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I've been just a little bit more background about me. The way that I actually got into the Facebook group is because Kayla, who runs the Facebook group, who's, as you know, a really incredible human being. Talk about
Mm-hmm.
inspiration. She's got an amazing story, but she's also just constantly writing the next chapter of it. And it's so wonderful to see. Kayla went through a coach training program that I was actually teaching and training through. So I was there for about a decade training and being trained. And so I'm really nerdy about coaching in general,
Mm-hmm.
but I've always been really interested in coaching as related to creativity. I do coach executives, but I'm not the sort of executive coach who would,
In the
looks great on
boardroom.
LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, no, no, thank you. Let's get more interested in what is your, for lack of a better way of saying this, personal magic as it relates to your professional life and your relationships. And, so I think I've just always gravitated toward that. And actually, when I was growing up, um, I was the I was on this cool project when I was in high school called One Song Productions. It was a entirely high school student run theater company,
Okay.
501(c)(3). And so we were just, I don't know, I've just always been really oriented to making things and
Mm-hmm.
being in community and kind of watching, like really being in that magical creative process where things get ideated and then they get messy and then they get polished, and it's just really satisfying. Yeah, it just means a lot to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the messy stage is a big part of it, and it's being able to embrace that messiness and have fun with it. It's amazing. It's amazing. And it's funny as you're talking about when you were in school. Now, when I was in high school, which has been a lot longer than from when you were in high school, I am sure. I was president of the art club, and I was the senior class president, and I was on the yearbook staff, and so I was involved in all those things. And the thing that really lit me up was being on the yearbook staff and being able to create
Mm,
all that stuff for the yearbook, and
mm,
being the art class president and being able to do all that. And we painted murals in the school, and we did all those things. And it was like, oh, that just felt so amazing, right? And but I will admit, as I got out of school and into college, I did art, but I got so far away from art because life got in the way.
mm,
And so one of the things that I've been working on in the past year, really, is getting more in tune to that part of me and getting back into the art for fun, not for what it's going to be, because I really started putting myself in this box with, oh, it's been so long since I did any of that. It's not going to be up to par. I've probably forgotten a lot of these things. And you know how we can do. I really started, holding myself back. And so now I'm really diving into more of that. Probably not as much as I should, or I would, I don't want to really should, but as much as I would like to, because I still get busy with things. But
mhm,
interestingly enough, one of the things that I was wanting to do for this year that I have like on my list of things is to have like an in-person workshop where we just draw and we paint and we just go outside and we're in touch with nature, and we just put stuff on the canvas, it doesn't mean anything other than getting letting those emotions and those feelings out. And so I like to always say that it our life is a symphony, and we're all the
Mm.
time grabbing new notes to put, on this magnificent symphony. And it's just like, oh, it just feels amazing to have it start come together. And
Mhm.
maybe somebody else doesn't hear the music like you do, and that's okay. So that's one of the things that I really have on my agenda for this year at some point. I have not even decided when, but this is like a very big magical moment right now to be here with you and talking about all of this. And I'm in the middle of writing. Well, middle is really a weird term to use because I'm at the beginning and the middle stages of writing a book. It's a fictional book that I never thought I would write. And so I have all of these things, my symphony notes are just coming from everywhere. So it
Yes.
may not make sense to a soul but me.
Yes, Vicky, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wait, before we talk more about creativity,
Hmm.
can I ask you about the plot of your novel? Like, is it fantasy? Is it romance? Is it,
Well, believe it or not, I was asked to do this from a gentleman that I had on my podcast, and it's an apocalyptic novel.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is that, and one of the things that I've been doing to get into tune with this a little bit more is I'll go out really late at night when it's dark, and I will go outside and I'll close my eyes and see what can I hear, because if there's no lights, no nothing, what do you pick up on?
Yes.
And really looking at the things that we do every day. What if all of those things were poof and they were gone? What would you do with your time? How would you feel? And how do you connect with people? And I mean, I've been in the process of imagining, and I've put very little on paper, but the imagination's been crazy. So I've got like these index cards that I've got stacked up where a thought comes, I write it down on an index card. And then I've got this board that I'm fixing a timeline on this board for things that happen in this novel, so that I can make sure I don't uh, do something in one part that went away in another part, to keep things on
Yeah.
track. But I mean, it's definitely an exploration of something I never would have dreamed of, was not even in my radar. So when he reached out, it was like, okay, this feels really strange and uncomfortable. I'm in.
Yes. That's so awesome. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's really cool when, to your point, like when we're open to the symphony, sometimes we have these sentinels, these people who show up and they bring either an idea or they catalyze a new project. And it might be a project for now, it might be a slow burn over a long period of time. But when I feel like when we're actually open and we let ourselves be available to that, all
Hmm.
kinds of helpers show up.
Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Isn't
I
it?
have one right now who it was very unexpected. And I think a lot of this too is the last couple of years, um, as sort of like moving on from a more traditional way of running my coaching business, I got really interested in kind of letting go of like, okay, so I've learned how to do all of this. I've been sort of doing it through the values system of the traditional, institution that trained me, et cetera, inside of a, male dominated capitalist system, yada, yada, yada. So if I'm actually just going to, if I'm really a yes to this next phase, like if I want to stay a coach and, live differently, where do I want to do that from?
Hmm.
What's important? And
So what
I
have you come up with?
started, yeah. So, well, I think so much of it was I sort of did this thing where I kind of felt like I hit bottom a little bit. Like on the
Hmm.
surface, everything was the same. Like I
Right.
still had coaching clients, everything, I'm still showing up for stuff, but I really had to kind of let myself go to that. It was very, the way that you were just describing going into the backyard at night and kind of just being in the silence. I
Hmm.
feel like I had to let myself go there on purpose for a couple of months and
Okay.
kind of just
Yeah.
reset, like what's it like if I'm just in this, you know, quiet space. Like if I'm getting back to what's essential, can I be with how uncomfortable it is
Yeah.
to let
You
it
know,
reveal itself, you
isn't that
know?
amazing how uncomfortable we can get in our own silence?
Yeah.
Yeah, getting into our own thoughts. That's why people are so distracted with the TV and the music. I mean, I had a friend one time that it didn't matter what, there was always some kind of noise in their home. It was whether it was music, and I know they don't think of that as noise, but there was music or there was a TV or they were on the phone or there was something. They never ever gave themselves time to just be alone
Mhm.
and think. And,
Yeah. And
and that's, yeah, it's amazing.
it is amazing. And I understand it. I mean, so you mentioned my book earlier. My book is called How to Be Creative in the Age of Digital Noise.
Yes.
And yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
It's a quick read. I wanted to put out a self-help book that would like actually help. So it's not long. Like you can sit down, bring a journal, it has some prompts in it. But so much of where I created the book from was, oh, okay, this process that I just took myself through has opened up to a totally new symphony, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And I seem to have a knack for explaining it.
Yeah.
So let me do it and make it very available. So that's how the book occurred. And so much of what's in the book is these very, honest, vulnerable, methodical ways that I started to think about myself, my creative spirit, the conditioning of my adult life that has taken me away from it, and how to kind of get back to it. There's also a pretty intense part of my story that I didn't tell you earlier, but so I was very much a music and theater kid.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't just producing theater. I was like going to summer camp, getting the lead in the show and the this and the that. And I was in every
Oh,
choir and the a
nice.
cappella group and, blah, blah, blah. And when I was maybe 17, I started losing my voice all the time. It was very painful. And I went to the ENT and they were like, oh, you have vocal nodes. And it's not unusual looking back. I'm like, well, there's a lot of overuse and a lot of strain. And, you know, I'm constantly trying to sound different than I naturally sound. Of course, that's going to add stress and strain.
Mm-hmm.
But what that did was kind of set in motion this quiet heartbreak
Yeah.
because I thought I had a future on the stage, and now you're telling me that I can't use my instrument. And it
Yeah.
wasn't only that I was being told that I couldn't, it was that it actually caused me physical pain.
Yeah.
Not only to sing, but some days it actually caused me pain to talk.
Yeah.
And so I went a totally different direction. And much of my 20s was while I'm growing my coaching practice. And part of how I even got into improv, Vicky, was because improv, you don't rehearse it. There's no expectation on your performance, your vocal ability. You just create with what's there. So I think that's why I got so into it during that time, was because it was a way that I could play and have fun and be on stage without worrying that I was going to let somebody down.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
It had to feel very freeing to be able to explore that and not have like a dialogue that you had to memorize and know and
yeah,
just, and it's kind of like, us here right now, it's like it's all improv because it's like intuitively knowing, let me speak about this, let me speak about that. And it's got to feel so good going from that structured space to being able to just freely just deliver.
and just kind of be and see what
Yeah.
happens, really trust
Yeah.
yourself, trust other people. It's
And isn't it
wild.
funny what comes out?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
best. I've recently been teaching improv again,
Hmm.
after incorporating all of my coaching skills and kind of helping people come back to the joy of it. Cause you can get very
Do
heady
you
the
do
more
that
improv
in
you take.
person or do you do that online?
Currently in person.
Okay. Would you be
Yeah,
open to doing it online?
possibly.
Okay. Well, I might
Yeah,
have something for you then. But
really.
don't forget, we'll talk about it after, okay?
Okay. One other thing I'll tell you, and then we can keep talking about this other thing. I
Okay.
have this fantasy of doing like a weekend retreat for coaches and helping professionals that's improv for
Hmm.
coaches and helping professionals. It would be the coolest. It would be really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Anyway, let's discuss.
Yes.
Okay.
We are going to be in each other's world for a while, I
I'm
believe.
so excited. Okay, good. I wait, there was a reason I brought all of this, the history up. Oh, right. It's because, when you're a coach, you're talking to people about moving things out of the way so that they can move toward their dreams. So you innately, unless you're like a sociopath, you innately are doing that for you too.
Right.
You can't talk to other people about their desires and their dreams without also being connected to yours or feeling the disconnect.
Right.
There's a relationship there. And so much of my growth as a coach was also this like yearning, this longing to really be reconnected to music, to my voice. And so you can see how, I feel like my approach, since I've been letting go of a more masculine way of approaching goal setting, which is kind of the way that coaches are trained. It's very like, what by when, and assert your will on the world and you will create things. And, I just realized, I think for me, a lot of connecting with dreams and moving toward our dreams it's a much more sensual experience. Wow, I can't even talk about it. That's how intense it is.
How nice is that?
Yeah, like I was like, if you had asked me, 7 years ago, like, Laura, by when will you release an album of original music? I would have been like, "Ah," and like run in the other direction,
Yeah.
But like all I really needed, and I think a lot of us need, and our creativity is often asking for, is just like a little more connection,
Mm-hmm.
just like the willingness to open the channel, to feel into it. And so Uncover Your Creative Magic, which is my 8-step guide. It's free. It's so fun and cool. It was amazing to make. And so much of it is about really just taking a little bit of time to yourself to follow these steps and look at, oh, if I remove this thing, what's there?
Yeah.
Oh, what do I remember about my creative magic from the past? Just starting to let it back in,
Mm-hmm.
because it's kind of like opening Pandora's box, as you have
Yeah.
found.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd love to invite you into my Facebook group. So I'll give
Yeah.
you the information. And but I would love for you to go back and look, because like I said, every day I've been going live with an affirmation and a journal prompt this month, all about magic. And sometimes it's just about the communication of magic or being open. What are
Mm.
you noticing and all those things. And so each day has been, I can't say very different, because they all seem to thread through each other, but I would love to have you go back and look and give me some thoughts on what's been playing out.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, I would
yeah,
love to. I would
yeah,
love it. You
yeah.
know, um, it's funny. It's so cool to be with a group of adults and discuss the concept of magic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so much of how my podcast actually began. So I co-host with my amazing colleague and my best friend, Bay Quiney, who's also a coach. And the reason we became friends was actually because we're in the same coaching community. And everybody knew that I loved Disney World. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone knows that Bay loves Disney World. And so they were like, you guys should be friends,
Yeah.
the way that people do. Like we just share an interest.
Yeah, yeah,
But they were actually right. Like we should be friends. We see the world the same way. We find a lot of inspiration in stories about magic. We find solace and community in rereading Harry Potter from time to time.
yeah,
It's really cool and special. And I think it's part of how we started West of Wonderland, was that we were just really hungry for a space to express ourselves freely, talk about the connections that we saw, that we felt, and also just to have a space where we didn't have to be using our perfect leader voice.
yes. You
And we
didn't have to
didn't
be adulting.
exactly. In fact, what I found, we'll be celebrating our third anniversary this August.
Mm-hmm.
The more we are the opposite of adulting, the more we resonate with people, which is
Yeah,
great because that's kind of our sweet spot, is the extreme uh power of unadulting.
yeah, yeah. And I find, and I think I still fall under the adulting part. Who knows? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But I find that the more vulnerable I get with who I am, and I am open to, the tears, and open to possible ridicule or whatever, that, people tend to connect with me a lot more because,
Mhm.
what we're taught when it comes to being a coach or being in business, being a leader of some kind, is that you have to be the leader. You have to be this shining example of what everybody's supposed to be. But hell, nobody can get to that. And that's really not truth anyway. And I get
Mhm.
really sometimes floored with the persona that some people put out of being so polished and so perfect, and so, that it's like there's nobody that is that way all the time. I mean, you can have
Mhm.
bits and pieces of yourself that fall into that, but it it just kind of feels full of unauthentic information,
Mhm.
and it never feels good because that's when you feel like somebody's trying to, like, that pull the wool over your eyes kind of
Mhm.
thing. And so I love that I've given myself permission to just be who I am. Um and sometimes that gets a little uncomfortable, but man, does it feel good when you get done, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think that line of thinking, that conditioning of like, we've got to be this certain way, it's
Mhm.
interesting because after so many years in coach and leadership development, I know that there's a certain truth, like there's a kernel of truth in that that's just become warped. Like it is true that to have a certain impact
Mhm.
on certain people in certain spaces, sometimes you do have to bring a certain commanding presence. Or,
Right.
if I'm facilitating something with a large group of people who I don't know very well yet, I want to present with something that's a little more polished,
Mhm.
so that I'm not taking over the space or whatever. But I think to your point, the there is a line where if we go too far into that realm of projecting perfection, we have not only lost our connection with the people who are following us, because now we're keeping up appearances. That's what it
Mhm.
is, which
Yeah.
sucks. Any people pleaser knows
Yeah.
that's like, no, you know? But it also means that we have at some point made a choice to step
Mhm.
away from the love of our own humanity. Like we've actually
Right.
said no to our
Yeah.
humanity, and that puts us in a cage. Like I think that's,
Yeah. Yeah.
I could make a case that in my upbringing created my vocal nodes or my autoimmune, It's
Mhm.
it's really intense, and I feel like when you start to taste life outside of that,
Yeah.
you then are like, "Oh my god." Like, oh, I was going to tell you actually, I love the name, the enlightened peach.
Mhm.
And I really wanted to hear the story behind it. But what it made me think of was that peach is to me like the most sensual fruit. When I eat a peach, I feel so alive
Mhm.
in a way that is unique to peaches. I don't know. I just freaking love
Yeah.
a fresh peach. It is like the best experience. And um, it made me think of how, first of all, how important the work is that you do at the Enlightened Peach. I personally have, I'm been doing a lot of recovery from disordered eating. I have a parent who is a diet doctor, plus I was a girl in the late 90s, 2000s. There's a lot of, you know, as you know, I'm preaching to the choir here. There's a lot of stuff there, but I remember there was this time when I was a teenager, probably around the time I got my nodes, where I was determined to go to college really hot and thin. And I was
Uh,
slim fasting all summer. And like the one thing I could have every day was like a giant fresh peach. And I just remember like I would take like 30 minutes to eat that piece of fruit. I would just like, you know,
Beautiful.
I've written poems about peaches. Like, man.
Uh, well, this is definitely a synchronistic dance there, right?
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, um, the enlightened peach. Well, for one thing, I love the fruit, but I'm a Georgia peach.
Oh, of course. Why
Yeah.
didn't I put that
Yeah, I'm
together?
a Georgia peach. And when I first changed, because I was life transformed coaching was what the name of my coaching before. And at one point, my daughter was studying to be a yoga instructor. And she was doing all these other things that I felt like I wanted to bring into my community as part of it. Right. And so I thought about it and I thought, well, we've got to create a whole new name so that it could be the two of us. Right. And then if you'll see, I've got I don't know. Can you see? I've got
Yeah.
my tattoo. And then I have a tattoo on my back, which is a lotus flower in the mud. And then my sun sign, which is a Virgo, is shining
Mm.
the light on the lotus flower, which is a rebirth, a reawakening. And so I felt like I was going through this metamorphosis of discovering who I really was. And that was when I turned 50. So it was like, it was this whole thing was just becoming awake in me. And then
Mm.
my daughter and I were going to do something. I thought, okay, so I feel like I've got this enlightened stuff that's coming up in me, and I'm opening up and I'm growing and I'm getting out of the mud. And then I'm a peach as well. So what would that be? And then it just came, enlightened peach. That's it.
I love
And
it.
I asked my daughter, I said, what do you think? She said, sounds perfect. So that's how it was born.
That's amazing. What
Yeah.
a cool creative experience of actually just
Yeah.
like allowing that to flow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I know, it feels delicious to even talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's so many people that I know who are, service providers or solopreneurs. I think that's the experience that most people crave is like having a little crush on their business.
Mhm.
Wouldn't that be cool? That's a lot
Yeah.
of the work I do with, I have some clients who are coaches or business owners, and that's a lot of the approach to change in their business or goal setting in their business is kind of, oh, what if you had a crush on everything you're doing? What would that feel like? It's
Yeah.
like a very different experience of creating a vision and moving toward it. There was one other thing I wanted to share with you, just in line with dreams, creativity.
Mhm.
So it's not like unique to me to have a theme of every year. A lot of people pick a theme or a word or something. The last few years, as I've been really opening up to more of a intuitive, creative approach to life, coaching, all
Mhm.
all the things, creation in general. I've been really expanding just how I let in the concept or the theme of the year. Even my vision boards have gone from being like very small little things to like you can't see it from where I am, but it's pretty large poster board for this year. And one of my big theme for this year is called Marshmallow Dream
Mhm.
Year. And
So expand on that a little bit.
yeah, so when I was thinking about this year, a lot of last year was kind of like breaking new ground. Like
Mhm.
I said, the year before, I had kind of said, like, I can't do it from this place anymore. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what are the things I love, creativity, obviously. And I remembered that back when I started coaching, I had this really simple dream, which was can I coach during the day and then live my artist life and improvise and write things and maybe get back into playing music. It was just this very humble idea, to not be a starving artist. Let me do
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
And then I got a bit distracted, I think, as a lot of people do, with money and accolades, and, you just become something else for a while. And so the more that I was spending time with it, I was like, oh, I just want to feel every day like I was sort of tired of that feeling of when I'm showing up for a meeting, getting nervous.
Mhm.
And I just started feeling into what does that mean? What is that about? What has me nervous? And my curiosity, like just a very loving, curious eye for a couple of months to really think about how would I know that this life feels like mine? And that line of thinking had me put out my book. It had me start my YouTube channel. And with the podcast with West of Wonderland, we're actually starting to host trainings for coaches. They're just 1 hour trainings once a month with a particular West of Wonderland theme. So our first one was wishes and
Mm-hmm.
talking about how do you explore a wish in a way that actually has it be powerful for a coaching client, you know?
Mm-hmm.
In the world of coaching, wishing is kind of a bad word, because
Right.
we're abdicating our responsibility and our power, and so part of the vibe of West of Wonderland is like, well, what's wistful about a wish? Like, how do you actually engage with it? And one of the cool things from that training was we had one of our participants she was kind of tracing back in her life, her relationship to just even the idea of wishing. And she was like, I think I was maybe like 11 or 12 when wishing wasn't cute anymore. It starts to
Yeah.
become practical, and so we're
Yeah.
kind of,
Because they'll say, get your head out of the clouds,
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. What's it going to
Yeah.
be? Meanwhile, where are most of us happy? When our head is in the clouds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
wait a second,
I know.
yeah. So we're, West of Wonderland, we're kind of opening that up and just sort of exploring like what else does our community want from this kind of conversation. It feels very dreamy. And Marshmallow Dream, I think last year I started to really clear space, start to see the skeleton of what could life be like. And not only just for my business, I'm talking a lot about business right now, but also for my music. And I started writing last year. In fact, it was writing some fan fiction that actually had me get the confidence to write my little self-help book in the first place. So that's fun. So I'm working on that. I have my own novel that I'm kind of like working on very slowly. There's just a lot of creation flowing. And Marshmallow Dream was because I felt like there was a bridge inside of myself that needed to happen between how I was currently feeling about myself and my possibility and the world, and this version of me that could live in this very creativity oriented place
Hmm.
without the sort of like heaviness. And
Right.
so I was like, what is that bridge? What is that bridge? And I swear to you, Vicky, all I could think was marshmallow, 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 marshmallow. It just kept coming. And so to me, marshmallow, it means so many things. It's
Hmm.
like, you know, I want every part of my life, even my financial life, to feel like I'm on pillowy soft,
Yeah.
sugary,
Well, you know
vanilla,
what
la la
came to
la.
me when you said marshmallow
Because
dreams?
your face changed when I said it. You were
Yeah.
like, mm, yeah.
It was like this soft transition. So it's
Yes.
like it doesn't feel hard. It doesn't feel, you know, forced. It doesn't feel anything. It's just this soft, like it just flows. That just felt really good. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it. I was
Yeah.
even getting imagery of like, um, I love what our bed has become. It's all like white and soft and clean and like tons of pillows. And I was just like, I want doing my budget to feel like I'm just lying in bed like that. Like that's how I want it all to feel,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you can see that's what this year has been about. So I've been like, as a practice, it's been very literal in some senses. I've been learning how to make my own vanilla marshmallows at home. So
Ooh,
that's
I
been kind
can't
of a
wait to hear
cool.
about that because
Oh my
that
God.
sounds intriguing.
Yes, there's a lot to tell.
Yeah. Okay.
But then it's also been really cool because that marshmallow dream is this, it's a, it's like a 360-degree feeling, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like you being in the backyard. It's like, what am I sensing? How am I feeling it? And so the things that normally feel like hard edges for me, I've just been really slowing down and being like, okay, what's the marshmallow dream version of this? Who do I be? How do I take it in? How do I interact with this? And of course, that's how you create anything new, is by being differently about it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, because we cannot, and you know this, but for our listeners, and some of them may know and some of them may not, but you cannot come to any solution when you're engrossed in the problem that you're trying to fix or you're trying to come with a solution, right?
mhm,
And there were so many times in my life that I would be so in the middle of the problem that it's like I could not see a way out, and I would try to force, and it was almost like, if you see like this something that's kind of in this bag and the bag's closed and you can see them pushing out of it, trying to get out, and it's like they can move it but it's nothing's coming out. And that's the way
mhm,
I felt for a lot of my life. It was like I was just struggling to get outside of the proverbial bag or box. And and to finally bust through it and then realize, oh my gosh, that solution was right there, but I was so inside that I couldn't see it. But when you get outside of it, it's like, I like to say a lot of times the reason why people need to hire coaches is because they cannot see what their shit is,
Yeah.
but we can get up above it because we're not emotionally attached to any of the stuff. And we
Mhm.
can get up above and we can kind of look down. It's almost like you're in the clouds and you're looking down at what this issue is that somebody has, and you can say, oh my gosh, there's a simple solution, take her right here, it's right over here, but they would never find it, or it would take them forever. And
Mhm.
so I think there is such an amazing place for us as coaches to help people in a way that they have no idea how fast they can make changes in their lives and make it last
Mhm.
if they just had the coach to kind of help them to see, because we all have the information within us, we just can't see what we need and how to get it out.
Mhm. Totally. And I,
Yeah.
I think that's why to me coaching is so magical
Yeah.
is because I think the coolest coaching sessions are not the ones that people leave with like, here's my 18-step
Yeah.
plan to change my life,
Yeah.
like the ones that are amazing are the ones where like your client is, or even as a client myself, like when I'm talking about something in a way that I always talk about it. And then the coach is like, huh, wait, did you just hear blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, yeah, I say that all the time. And then there's something there where like your coach is listening to you without
Hmm.
your filter and without the filter of everybody else in your life. And so
Yeah.
they're going to just feel into that space between what you think is and what's possible.
Yeah.
That's to me what's
And they can see the
so
beauty
great.
of all the things that you think are just like, oh, that's just me.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
I had a meeting with my coach the other day because I'm creating a new program. And in this program, I've got these pillars and I've got these things. And I started hitting into that imposter syndrome, because I said, I can help people with my coaching and my hypnosis, but I haven't done that. I can help them with this, but I haven't done that. And I said that
Mm.
about everything. She said, wait a minute, Vicky, what are you talking about? She said, you did this and this and this and this and this and this and this, all right? And I said, yeah. And she said, that's exactly what you're taking them through. You're not seeing it. And it was like, poof,
Like, of
in that
course.
instant, it was like suddenly I thought, oh, I'm speaking from experience. I'm really helping them do something that
Wow.
I've already done. And I didn't even see it until she pointed it out.
That's
And yeah,
amazing.
so it's the beauty of having a coach that gets you and is able to get that view from the clouds into what you're dealing with and what you're creating and just help you see. And it's like, oh,
Mhm.
wow.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
My coach said this thing recently when we were kind of hemming and hawing about when to begin our West of Wonderland trainings. And she was like, Laura, sounds like the bus needs someone to drive it. And I was like, oh, I can be the bus driver. Okay, thank you. That's my leadership to take. All right, got
Yeah.
it. But I was also thinking to the thing that you said about the imposter syndrome. I mentioned I've recently started teaching improv again,
Hmm.
which brought up all of these waves of imposter syndrome because, you know, who am I to blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Especially, I live very close to New York City where there's a very intense improv scene, and there's a particular culture to that. And so earlier this month, I went to this improv festival in Hartford, Connecticut, and they selected me to teach a workshop. And the workshop that I taught was called Get Out of Your Head in Long Form, which is a style of improv, Get Out of Your Head in Long Form. And I had no idea if anyone would be interested in it. I had no idea if anyone would come. I don't know people in this community. And the morning of my workshop, I showed up and I was like, "Hi, I'm here. I brought name tags for people because I didn't know, da, 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 da. Where do I go? Where's my room?" And they were like, "Oh, you're in the big room because it's sold out." And
Whoa.
I know. I was like, "Huh?" Like, glad I didn't know
So
because I
did that
would have
make
been
you feel
freaking
good or did it scare the crap out of
both. Because my
Yeah.
imposter syndrome was going crazy. It was like, this place is filled with like people from New York, like the other people leading workshops are like kind of big names. So I was sort of
Mhm.
like, who am I to be on that
Yeah.
roster? And then at the same time, I also go to this place, even though I have a lot of trust in myself to own a room and create with anyone, I can work with what's there. I have
Right.
a lot of evidence that that is true and that it
Mhm.
will be fun by the
Mhm.
end. Like that's who I am. But I also have this very strong fear that shows up in moments like this of disappointing people,
Yeah.
and it shows up even in telling you about uncover your creative magic. Part of me is like, I hope I don't talk it up too much that it doesn't meet expectation. Like that's where I go, because
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to be manipulative and I hate, but I also have this little
Yeah,
tiny
you wanna
fear
make
that's like, I don't want
sure
to be
that
disappointing.
you underpromise and overdeliver.
Right. But then
Yeah.
like you also need to own
Yeah.
when your stuff is good.
That's
So
right. That's right. Well, I've had things that I've done before that I would start having imposter syndrome before things started, and I think, oh, I hope nobody shows up.
I know. So
Isn't that the
bizarre.
craziest thing?
It's so
And then it was like,
crazy.
oh my gosh, I hope everybody shows up. It was like I would just go back and forth and back and forth. And I think that's the nature of a creative because, you know, it's getting we the thing that helps us so much is to be able to get into this space that it doesn't matter if nobody shows up, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what anybody says, but that takes some finesse and some flowing this musical notes all together and creating this within you, because I'm telling you there have been times that I was scared as crap that somebody would show, and then I was scared that, oh my god, what if nobody shows up?
Hmm.
And it's just bizarre, but now I release the expectation so that if I get a whole bunch of people, I'm good. If I only get one, I'm good. If nobody shows up, I'm good. And it's like I did a live the other day in my group and not a soul showed up, which is very rare. And but Facebook's doing all this new stuff with all their things. But I'm there. I delivered just like I had all the people there. I just didn't have the comments to interact with, but I still interacted like they were there. And, and used to, I would have said, well, I guess I don't do this today. And I would have just gotten
Right.
off.
Right.
So it's you finally you get to a place where it's like, I'm good. I'll still do it.
Totally. Well, and I think that's part of what's magical about like I'll speak from my experience, but I think you take yourself seriously differently when you
Hmm.
start making stuff.
Yeah.
And when you make stuff and you participate with it in the world in some way, there's a little bit of friction created. And that friction shows you what's the direction I want to go, you
All
know?
right.
And so I think it's really a lot of people, because a lot of my work, like with my book and Uncover Your Creative Magic and my course, Creative Clear Out, so much of it is helping people go from I miss my creativity, I don't know where to start, into actually being back in that sense of trust and creative flow and having space to do so. And so much of what stops people from even just engaging is they go all the way to that end point of like, will anybody, how will it go?
Hmm.
And I think the more that you do it, it helps you detach because you understand I'm part of a larger ecosystem. Like the thing that I'm creating isn't just me.
Right.
There's a threshold you cross when it goes from being just your thing to a wider experience. And
Hmm.
that's when we have to be willing to just have some faith and let the universe show us what's supposed to happen next. Like I can't believe I'm telling you this, but when I turned 30, uh, I had this idea. I was like starting to write music and I wanted people to come, I wanted to perform, but I didn't have a lot of community in New York City. And I was really worried that I would go to put up a show and that nobody would come. So I was like, well, if it's my birthday, then people will have to come. And then that snowballed into becoming this like cabaret show for my 30th birthday. And I involved my family and I created sort of this mixtape of like different songs through my personal eras. And it was really fun.
Hmm.
But it was also this crazy leap of faith to just be like, you know what? I don't know who's going to come. I don't know if people are going to have judgments about this. I'm a Leo. So you know, the urge to celebrate oneself is very strong.
Yeah.
And the thing it's funny because it's been almost 6 years since that. I'll be 36 this summer. And when I look back on it, I'm like happy that I did it, but I also cringe because I'm like, oh my God, like I wouldn't do it that way now.
What would you do
But
now?
um that's a good question. Like if I was doing a show for my birthday,
Hmm.
it would um I would probably do that's a really good question. Like I might do something similar, but it would be less of a show. It would be
Hmm.
more of like a party. Maybe there would be other people involved in performing. In fact, my I mentioned earlier, I have someone who showed up and is sort of like moving my creativity forward. My friend Neil is producing the heck out of my next album. And
Okay.
he's turning 50 this fall and he's doing a show called 50 Shades of Neil. And he's like bringing his former bandmates from like other eras of life to come for like a weekend retreat and hang out, play the old stuff, you know. And he asked me to be part of it because now he's like doing the instrumentation for my music. And so now I'm like one of his musical eras,
Hmm.
you know? So I feel like it
Nice.
would be more of that vibe of like
So
it's
it'd
kind of
be
like
more
everybody
kind of a relaxed kind of just,
togetherness.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. More
yeah,
so than like, haha. But
yeah,
that's where I was at the time. And it was
yeah,
cool. But the thing that is really neat about it to me is that people still tell me how inspired they were by that. Like,
yeah,
like how many people have been like, that's so cool. I should do that. I'm like, you should. I will come. Like,
yeah,
that's so neat. And so to
yeah.
me, that makes the price of my cringe
Worth
worth
it?
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Plus the memory. It's a very lovely memory for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I imagine so. And the thing that I say about my Facebook community is that there's like they're my friends, they're my babies, but I always tell them that I feel like we're in my backyard around this big campfire and we're holding hands and singing kumbaya, we're just all connected and it's flowing and we just, that vibration of all of us is just collectively going around and around and making us all vibrate at a higher level and life is just amazing, right? And
So
so
good.
like to me, if I could have a big birthday gathering and have all these people show up and feel that way, that would be amazing because I will share and I hope I don't cry, but
Oh, I hope you do. Sorry.
hey, don't tempt me, it's right here.
Yeah.
But my fear has always been, and I can feel it coming, that I would die without having made a big enough difference in people's lives because I want to be remembered in an amazing way, not just by my family and my
Mhm.
friends, but collectively. I want to have really made a big enough difference that people say, oh, yeah, Vicky Poole, man, do we miss her? She
Wow.
did this, she changed this, she did, that's my wish. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with me. Wow, Vicky. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you right now that who you be is tremendous impact.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
What
you.
a light you are. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Mm. I'll have to check my mascara when we get done. Luckily, a lot of this is not a visual.
I was gonna say I put some on before this. I usually don't. I was like, I'll be fine. Yeah. But
Uh,
it's a I feel like, you know, it's a really good connection when we go there. You know, it's not
mhm.
often I meet someone for the first time and I'm like, I do have a fear of being disappointing, and it is deeply rooted. It is very solid, you know. And as
Yeah.
I just I really want you to know how much and I think anybody listening to this really holds what you just shared with so much tenderness. and care. I've spent less than 1 hour with you so far, and I can tell you right now that the impact that you have on people is felt
Oh, thank
humongous.
you.
Yeah, how
Thank
much you
you.
just give, and the delight with which you give. It's very clear.
Oh, I appreciate that
Yeah.
so much. I really do. I really do. And we are really getting close to time. It feels like I could talk to you forever.
Same. I
Um,
know. I wish I lived in Georgia.
I know, I know. So we need to kind of bring this to a close, but I think we
Yeah,
will probably do this again. I would love to. I would
I
love
would
to.
too.
In the description, when I do put this out, when it's published, I will have the description. In the description, I will have the links to your books and your social media and all your things. So that's taken care of. So what's the last thing that you would like to leave this audience with? Something from your heart, something that feels like it's just the next thing that needs to be said.
Mm.
No pressure.
Seriously. I think it's it's that thing we've been talking about of so much of what stops us from being more creative and therefore I think feeling more alive is we get worried about steps, and we get worried about being seen, and we get worried about what's controllable. And I think that we are all better off if we just like throw all of that out and just focus on moving toward that creative spirit again, just moving toward that little bit of creative joy, that little bit of magic, anything that you can do to either, creatively or emotionally let yourself feel into that sense of wonder and imagination and power. It invites it back in, you
Yeah.
know. There's kind of like no moment too small.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And I want everybody to take your advice and put your head in the clouds and see the world from that place with your marshmallow dreams. I mean, doesn't that sound like the most delicious place to live? Right?
Truly.
Yes,
It's
yes.
going well, I will
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Delicious, yes.
Yes, beautiful. Well, I'll leave everybody with the quote that I love, that I normally leave everybody with. And it always seems like for whatever discussion's going on, is the most appropriate last thing. And it is the best way to predict the future is create it. What are you creating? So head in the clouds, baby, marshmallow dreams. You've got this thing. Mwah.